Hey, everybody, welcome to our Monday night call. Tonight we have a super special, important guest being with us tonight, and her name is Angela Faith Harry. Is that what you go by, Angela, by the way? You go by all three names?
So people know me as Angela Faith,
Okay.
and I didn't actually add my last name onto social media until just this past month, and so I have been Angela Faith on social media for like over 4 years.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's just
All right,
I
so
know.
Angela Faith, then we'll go with Angela Faith. She's a Sapphire Ambassador with Plexus, and so we are really excited to have her share her wisdom and her top tips and share her story and all of the above on this call tonight. So I'm really glad that all of you took time out of your night to come and join us tonight. And Angela, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us tonight, and I'm really excited to hear everything you have to say. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The first question I wanted to ask you is, well, just start with telling us your story. Tell us what happened with the products. Tell us your business story. Just tell us what's happened with you.
Absolutely. So, well, first of all, thank you for having me. There is absolutely nothing that I love more than just finding more people to pour into. And I don't know, you probably feel exactly like I do, where you cannot wait to get your team in front of other people because you know that they're going to have something else to say that somebody on your team is going to resonate with, or they're just going to relate to that person for some reason. So it's always my prayer that whatever I say reaches somebody, that it's like has an aha moment or a light bulb moment for somebody. And I think we should say Brittany and I met actually at Jewel Training in July, and we kind of hit it off quickly because she was really quiet and she wasn't like the one that was kind of put herself right out there. And I can tend to be right on that cusp of like introvert, extrovert. So I totally get that. And so, but I'm enough of an extrovert to like go after somebody who's quiet and make them talk to me. so as soon as I started talking to her, I was like, oh, she's really smart. Like she's got it together. I like this girl. So yeah, it was kind of like we started talking at that point and talking about different ideas. And if you get into the whole color personality thing, I think we're kind of opposite sides of the spectrum in some ways, but we agree on a lot. So
Yeah.
So here's my story. 3 years ago, I started using these products because I was really struggling health-wise. I had some really bad stuff going on in my life, and didn't for a minute think that these supplements were going to actually turn my life around. However, I believed in supplements. I believed in clean eating. I was a vegetarian for 10 years. I have changed my ways. I'm back on the right path. I'm not a vegetarian anymore. Bacon is back in my life, but but I used supplements from my early 20s. I was on probiotics from a very young age. I mean, I was probably 21. I started probiotics. I put my kids on probiotics. So, I mean, I believed in all of that. However, when you've done everything apparently right, when you exercise and you do CrossFit and you're doing Pilates and you are active with your kids and you're eating the right foods and you're taking supplements and you only drink water. I didn't drink soda since I was 16 years old. So when you're doing all of those things right and you end up really sick and you get some pretty terrible diagnoses by the time that you're in your mid-30s, there comes this point where you really think that supplements are not going to be your answer, because if they were and you've been doing it for 15 years, you probably wouldn't have gotten to the point that you got to, right? So here I was 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. I am at a crisis point in my health. And just to draw the contrast for you a little bit, let me tell you how I was before I got to that crisis point. So I'm a mom of 3. I have 2 daughters that are in college. They actually just went home in the last 48 hours. Went back to college from home in the last 48 hours. And then I have a 10-year-old son. And so my oldest is 20 years old now. And so for the first, 10 years of parenting and adult life, I was really very active, very much like that super mom. Unfortunately, took everything on. I baked and hiked and did crafts, and my husband was in the military, so he was gone most of the time, and I really was doing it all on my own. I homeschooled for a combined total of over 10 years between the two of them, and really just was one of those, like, if there's something to be done, I'm going to do it. If I have to juggle one more thing, I'll juggle one more thing. I loved gardening. I loved being outside. And all of a sudden, at about 30 years old, I had my third child, and I started to be really, really tired, and I started to have pain all over the place, and it got increasingly bad. And I was joking around at first. For the first year or two, I was joking around and saying, gosh, you know, turning 30 is no joke. And having your third kid in your 30s is so different than having, you know, them in your 20s. So I was making all these excuses and comparisons for how bad things were getting. And of course, I was looking for other supplements to add. Of course, I was looking at diet changes that I could make and doing those things, but nothing was making me better. And I was getting worse and worse. So by the time that I was about 34 is when I really started going after trying to get a diagnosis. And of course, I can't talk about them, but I can tell you that I had 3 specialists that I saw regularly. I had a rheumatologist, a gastroenterologist, and a cardiologist. And I was on 3 different medications just to manage pain. And so it was a pretty desperate place that I was getting to, because in the summer of 2013, we had gone to Disney World that previous spring. And I'll just tell you my Disney World story, because sometimes a lot of people can relate to that. Like, you go and you have to have a lot of energy to take your kids to Disney. You have to, like, there's a lot to do. You've got to cram it all into a couple of days. Well, this was when I actually went ahead and agreed to another medication to try to manage and maintain, just because I'd done it before. It was our second time taking our kids there. And I was like, you know what? I know this takes a lot. And I know I no longer have this energy, and I'm not going to be able to sustain, and I have so much pain. I need to take something off my plate. So I went ahead and added in this other medication that I had been resisting for a long time. And I remember my rheumatologist saying that I wasn't going to win any awards, you know, for withstanding the most pain. She was like, you need to stay in front of it, and you need to try to do your best to stay in front of it, because you've just got to kind of maintain, you know, you've got to find a way to manage life. And so I just have to keep reminding people that at this time, I'm like not even 35, 36 years old.
Was this pain like in your muscles, like in your joints, or like what kind of pain were you having?
So it's hard for me to get too much into that without getting all completely non-compliant, and then nobody can ever post this video. But it was literally all over the place. I had it in my joints. I had it in my hands. So I couldn't squeeze a washcloth. I couldn't wipe down counters without it being really painful. When I was driving, I had teenagers at this point, so somebody could sit in the passenger side, and I would often take my right hand and hand it over and have them like massage my hand, because it was so painful. And then I couldn't put my left hand over there, but I wished I could. I wore like golf gloves to try to put padding on my hands just for holding the steering wheel, because it hurt so much. My feet, I would constantly, I put so much money into just finding ways to try to make my feet feel better, because walking around on them hurt so bad. They ached so bad. My hips, just everything from head to toe. I was very stiff. So if I sat still for too long, I got super stiff. But if I did too much for too long, it was like a train had run, a truck had run me over. If I did too much in any given day, let's say, so I would try to keep my walking up and down the stairs. I would try to keep that to 1 trip a day. So if I would come down and think I needed to bring the laundry baskets down to do laundry that day, if I came down and had forgotten that basket, I was probably going to have to wait till the next day to do the laundry. This is how I had to measure out what I did every day. I was also running a daycare. So it got really tricky because I was running a daycare. And that is what I did for many years. And that is what I retired from with Plexus. So that got really tricky because I actually had to get help to then carry the babies and do things for me. So that was another expense, paying somebody to help me with that. So very, very challenging what I was going through. But anyway, so I went through that summer and things just spiraled and got worse. And actually my mental state got worse. So when people say pain changes people, it is the truest thing. Chronic pain really changes people. It took me from being a very positive person who, always saw the silver lining in everything, to just being so down and so depressed that I almost couldn't see, the sunshine when it was right in my face. It was just a really tough place to be in. It was really sad. And as I say all of this, usually when I tell my story, I always remind people, and this is especially if we're in an event where people are wanting to know about the products, I'm always like, my story is like the extreme. It's like where you don't want to get with your health. It's where you don't want to get with your gut health being completely out of whack, because that's what's going to take you to the point that I was at. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I went through this really terrible summer. I really felt like this is it. Like my life is over. My husband was considering changing his job to another job field altogether so that he could be home more. You know, he was out of the military, and then he was in the government. So he now at this point has 20 years of experience in his job. So at 15 years into experience, and at the level that he was at, he was looking at, how can I change my job? Because she can't take care of us. I would make dinner, and then I would crawl up the stairs, close the door, and be done for the night, at dinner time. So it was really bad. And that part of it went on a little bit longer than it was supposed to. But here's the thing. There's a reason I tell you my story and that detailed about it. And it is that when we say these products change people's lives, we are so not kidding, because these products literally gave me my life back, literally gave my kids their mom back, literally gave my husband his wife back. So when we say changing lives, it is just not like fluff talk. I mean, it is real. My entire family is so over the moon. You could not shake the plexus off of us. We are so committed because of what these products did for me. So anyway, 3 years ago is where I was at the point that I was like, there's just no way that I can't keep doing this for 2 more years, much less another 20 or 30 years. And the funniest thing happened. I was about to pull out. How many of you, I mean, I can't see the whole screen because I'm doing this from my phone right now, but how many of you have ever just been so kind of down in the dumps, sick of seeing everybody's happy stuff on Facebook, that you just don't want to be on Facebook anymore because everybody looks like everything's great and they're so happy? I hit that point where I didn't want to be on Facebook anymore because I was not so happy, and I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel for me, and I wanted to be off of Facebook. So I put out a message and told my friends, go ahead and send me all of your addresses so I can still do Christmas cards, but I'm kind of done with Facebook. I just can't do it anymore. Well, within about 4 weeks, I was still waiting, still kind of hadn't shut it down yet. A friend of mine in Texas posted about Plexus Probio 5. Apparently, she had been posting about it for a good solid 3 months, and this is the first one I ever saw. And I got really curious about the Probio 5 because, like I said, I'd been on probiotics for 15 years at that point, and I thought, why is she selling a probiotic on Facebook? This is so weird. And so I started looking into it, and I started digging, and I started researching. She had no idea. She never reached out to me. She didn't know I was looking into it. And I totally just trying to it just was my curiosity, really, more than anything. And I started seeing these stories, and I started thinking, oh my gosh, these people sound like me. Some of these people sound like they're as bad as I was. But then here's what was really happening in my brain. And if you want to know what people are thinking, this is what people are thinking. I'm reading the stories, and they're using way too many exclamation points at the end of every sentence about how happy they are, how much energy they have, how they don't feel, they're not hurting anymore. I needed energy. I was literally falling asleep at red lights. I was living on coffee at this point, a pot of coffee a day was what I was pulling myself through the day with. That caffeine was having no effect on me physically anymore, but mentally, I was like, next cup of coffee, just get to the next cup of coffee. So they were having energy, and again, 20 exclamation points. But when people were saying that they weren't hurting anymore, and that all these things that were the same things I was dealing with were no longer an issue, I thought, well, okay, I don't think that they're lying because they all seem really sincere. And I feel like I'm pretty good at spotting a liar. They seem really sincere. But there's no way that they're as sick as I am, that they're in as much pain as I am, or that they're as tired as I am. And then to top it off, there were people saying and I don't want to overeat anymore. And I was like, now that's never going to be me. But it might help me to not feel as bad. It might help take one thing off my plate. It might even give me a little bit of energy because it's doing a lot for these people. But there is no way that it's going to change the fact that I'm an Italian girl. I was raised on bread, pasta, and cannelloni, and you name it. So casserole would call to me from the refrigerator when I would go to bed. I was like, there's no way. I've been this girl my whole life. And I hate people that are just not hungry. I'll just take like half the grapefruit. I'm good. Like, I hate those people. So
you're a special person if you forget to eat.
I know, it was like, there's no way that's ever going to be me. So that almost made me not believe it. That almost made me think, like, there's just no way, because this sounds too good to be true. But so I'm like a Facebook stalker. So I'm like looking at people's, Facebook profiles. I'm like, I don't know, they seem like a really normal person. They don't really seem shady. So this goes on for like a couple of weeks, and then I actually message my friend and I say, how do I sign up? This is the first message she got from me. How do I sign up? I know we all wish that every single person would just come to us and say, how do I sign up? So I now realize that that is not the norm. That is totally what I expected once I did it. I thought I'm going to tell them how great it is. They're all going to message me and say, how do I sign up? Because that's what I did. And so nonetheless, I got on the products, and within 4 weeks, I was like a new person. Within 4 weeks, I knew that my life was changing. Here's the thing. I was completely committed to the products. I took them every day, always drank my water. I'm not a soda drinker, so I drink tons of water. I really let stuff flush out of my system, and I really allowed myself to go through that process. I understood that it was going to take a little bit for my body to try to reset. And it's not that in 4 weeks, everything was gone. It was that in 4 weeks, I knew that it was happening. I knew that things were changing, and it was really significant. And I just kind of felt like, like, pinch me, this can't be real. So it was 3 years ago today, this, what is today's date? Basically 3 years ago today that I was kind of out there saying, hey, there's this Plexus stuff. I don't know, but it might be able to help you because it's helping me. And, here I am now as Sapphire. So that's my whole story. I retired from daycare as a senior Ruby, and that was a little over a year ago. It was in June of 2015. And let me move on to your next question, because I could talk about my story forever.
I love your story. So your pain is better now? And
I am literally just like if you would take like the me that I was at about 27 or 28, that's who I am now. I'll be 41 next week. So yeah.
Wow. So you can go to Disney World now?
I can go to Disney if I want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have some really great posts that I've made over time where, like, I hiked. We lived in Frederick, Maryland right before I moved here last month. We were in Frederick, Maryland for 10 years. And so it's beautiful if you ever want to go like camping and go do stuff at the lakes. So people love to hike. Well, I spent almost 10 years not being able to do those things because I physically couldn't do it. I thought that I had joint damage that was irreversible. That's how bad it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to hike and, do crazy stuff. I still can't like bike ride with people, but that's because I have some messed up knees that I can't do bicycles, but we'll get there. I got some knee replacement.
Explanation points now, though? You have explanation points in your life?
Tons. I try to keep it to a minimum because I remember what I thought, but I find myself doing it and I'm like, oh, I'm one of them now.
You have exclamation points. I love it. Okay, so the next question is, what are some of the biggest obstacles that you've had to overcome on your journey to Sapphire?
That question is an interesting one for me. My obstacles are probably atypical, meaning that when I decided to do Plexus as a business, I very, very quickly cycled through some of the obstacles that you guys tend to face or hear from people are all the kinds of things like, I'm afraid to talk to people, I don't know enough people, I'm afraid I'm not going to have my friends anymore, I'm going to look crazy on social media. I want to address that really quickly. Those things would have affected me if I hadn't been through some of the things I'd already been through in my life. And I got to Plexus in a place where I already knew who I was, and I didn't have time I already knew that I wasn't going to, sorry, my phone battery was trying to go. I already knew that I wasn't going to live a smaller life or not be my truest version of myself to please anybody else. That did not come to me easily. It was a really long lesson that I had to learn in my life, but it came through some pretty big things that I faced before I ever got to Plexus. because I was already at that point, I already knew that I'm here to, you have got to embrace who you are and bring your gifts to this world. You cannot like live a smaller life and say, I'm afraid that somebody might look at me like I'm weird because I'm not, fitting into their box or whatever their concept is for what I should be. You've got to understand that that's just, there is no purpose to be on this planet at all if that's what you're going to do. So that part of it wasn't an obstacle for me. I already knew, whether you believe me or not, these products really work. They are the real deal. You can't go get them off the shelf. You can try to go put all this stuff together yourself, but you're going to spend more money. You're going to waste your time. I took an entire cabinet full of all kinds of supplements that I'd spent way more money on that were doing nothing for me, basically, and replaced them with like 3 products. Mm-hmm. Then I added in not the Mega X, the X Factor and everything up after that, but still far less products. The obstacles that I ran into really came to stuff that really hits people later on. So when you get people that are kind of senior gold level, those are my obstacles, where you were doing too much for people, doing everything for them, not like sort of making them self-sufficient. As I had to learn how to kick the little birdies out of the nest and build leaders. So I had to learn to show them and demonstrate, and then make them do it themselves, point them to the resources, and then have them do it themselves. So those kinds of things were my real obstacles. It really wasn't, but again, I know, look at Sapphire, you have heard it all. You know what people's struggles are. I work very hard, close, kind of belly to belly with my team. And I know that most of the obstacles are, what if people don't like me anymore? Or what if people think that badly of me because I'm posting something, or they don't agree with me? And I just want to say, what if by letting that shut you down, you then don't reach the people like me who just really, really needed these products? What if you don't reach that, that one person? Like my upline has, a couple of people as passionate as I am about Plexus, and that not only changed my life and my financial future, but it changed her life, because I came in and I was like, let's rock and roll, let's do this, because there's people that need these products, and I wasn't afraid of what people would think of me. But I was more afraid of what I would think of myself if I didn't offer these products to people. I could have just kept buying the products. I was not somebody who needed to make back the $100 and something a month in order to stay on the products. I could have just kept buying them myself, but other people need these products, and that was really important to me. So for me, learning to do vision calls with people in my team versus counseling them and mentoring like one-on-one, and that's really can be a very fruitless, time-sucking effort. Sometimes people just, people that just want to talk and tell you, I talked to this person and I talked to that person, and then a month later it's the same conversation all over again, but we haven't made any progress. Yeah. So learning how to do vision calls was really big for me, because that helped me to still be able to build my business. Because as you move forward in this, you start to get into that manager mode. Mm-hmm. Manager mode is a stinky place to be.
Yes.
You're a switchboard operator, and you're just solving everybody's problems and answering everybody's questions, and you're like, wait a minute, I got to build my business, and then building boundaries around your time. As things start to, whether it's the beginning of your business or whether you're further into it. But I sort of didn't build my boundaries until later. So those were my obstacles. So if you want to talk about one in particular, I'm happy to talk about it though.
So you're saying your main obstacle was just putting boundaries in place as far as being a leader and things like that.
Mine were the things that hit people a little bit later, but I do know that that's not typical, because other people's obstacles are all the other stuff usually.
I mean, I do think it's pretty typical, especially for somebody who's naturally a strong leader. Somebody who's naturally a strong leader tends to be like a leader for a lot of people, not just their level ones. You know what I mean?
You know
what I mean? Like if you're not training up your level ones to be leaders, that means your levels 2s, 3s, 4s, and on down are going to think you're the one. You know what I mean? And that is not what you want to be, because that's not time freedom.
No, and it's somewhat unavoidable in some ways. There's just to some degree that's going to happen anyway. Mm-hmm. But you do really, when you see it start to happen, you really have to say, oh, okay, let's put on the brakes. Let's figure out how I turn these very strong people into leaders who don't who,
Yes.
because for me, and I'm sure this is the way it is with you, for me, it's like, when you think about it, everything that ever goes on, I'm that person where the buck stops here. So from everybody up to me, I'm like, the buck stops here. My upline doesn't hear it from my downline, right? So there's those people at different places in your downline, and I just kind of had to learn how to identify who they are and help have more of the buck stops here people in my downline.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I love that.
yeah.
And
Which can be.
I don't think that's atypical at all, Angela. I think I'm glad you shared that, because I think, like I said, for somebody who is naturally a very strong leader, I think it can easily get to that because they do have the answers and they can solve the problems because they're leaders, I think.
Bingo. That's what it is. And that's what people say. They're like, but you have the answers. Yeah. So you have to learn how to turn people back to the resources, because if for no other reason than you guys, and hear my heart on this, and I know Brittany feels the same way. It is not because, it's not that you don't want to be available to people and help people. You care about people. You want to answer their questions. The thing is, there's one of you and there's 2,000 of them, and it's not time freedom, and nobody wants to join a business that looks like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, it's kind of like if you're parenting your child, you're not doing your child any favors if you do everything for your child and you never teach them to be self-sufficient, to be independent. You're not doing them any favors. So it is an act of, I guess you could say, tough love to make them be leaders, to make them, do things that might not necessarily come natural or be uncomfortable.
And some people will, and some people won't do that. It's just, okay. So somebody wants to know about the vision calls. I'm happy to talk about it.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, shoot, go ahead.
Okay. Here is the difference for me. I do a lot of coaching groups. I'm actually have a coaching group running right now that's that ends on Wednesday. That's been a month long. I do a lot of coaching groups where I'll take everybody at one time and I'll teach concepts and activity, and I will teach a group of people all at one time where you have access to me within that group. Like right now, it started out with 87 people. It's got like 65 people that are still doing the assignments every single day. In that kind of atmosphere, in that kind of an arena, I will do coaching, I will do mentoring, because I'm giving you my funneled, focused attention to a group. But for me, it has to go into a group setting, because when I do that kind of stuff one-on-one, it becomes, if you are like a counselor type personality and that just sort of comes naturally to you, and then when people call you, you're on the phone for an hour and you're working through all their problems, and you're also talking about their life problems and their organization problems, and you're really, at that point, you realize that you are like hand holding people through the nitty gritty daily, like building your business stuff that you kind of had to do on your own. I had to do that on my own. I didn't actually have somebody that walked me through how to organize my office and how to find balance in my family time and what exactly to say. It was just a lot of stuff that I thought was better suited to a coaching group, where I could deal with a group of people at once that had my attention, and I would answer their questions in that group for like a month at a time or 2 weeks or however long those ones are. Vision calls are this. At a certain point, so in my coaching groups, I don't limit how many levels within my team I'll do. I can't do that. I know some people do. I can't do it. Whoever is in my downline that wants to be in those coaching groups, if you want to learn, I'm available to teach you. I can grab a group at a time. It's not the same, because those people are committing to a certain level of personal accountability and activity, and they are having like work ethic where they are putting the time in, and so they deserve that kind of focus time back from me. What happens when you do coaching calls, and I'm not to step on your feet, on your toes, because whatever you do with your team, I'm just saying this is what worked for me. Coaching calls got really tricky for me because I found myself doing them for more than just my level ones, of course. Then it's level twos, then it's the level threes who don't really have somebody that's really working with them. And before you know it, you've got like 50 or 60 people that are wanting a call with you once a week or once a month. And it gets really overwhelming. Plus, it's not very productive because some of those people, they just want some time with you. They just want the attention, and they're not really doing the work. And so I started shifting things when that got really oppressive and was becoming very fruitless and draining. I said, we've got to do something different. So now I do vision calls with my level ones. And what that looks like, instead of me giving you a plan of action, this is what coaching and mentoring looks like. And if you want a coach or a mentor, you either get into a coaching group with somebody or you hire a mentor. They cost like $200 an hour and they can get you into shape. But when we're doing it for free, it's really, really draining and it's not as productive. And you're not paying for it, so you're probably not really putting our suggestions into action, which is what, unfortunately, what we usually see is I'm going to give you the answers and then you're going to turn around and you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over. Probably because I'm doing it for free. It's not a value. So what I do with vision calls is they get that time with me where it's 20 or 25 minutes where they know that I care about them and I care about their goals. What are your goals? Let's compare them to where you were last month. Did you achieve your goals? Like, you're doing a lot of asking the right questions. No, you didn't. Okay, what do you think you could have done differently? So you're the question asker. You're not creating a plan. You're not resolving all their problems for them. You're not listening to all of their, well, I talked to Sally and Sally didn't do this. And what do you think? Like, it can get very repetitive. You know what I'm saying? Where you're not really doing anything productive. Where you can kind of listen and then you can say, okay, well, what could you do differently, the next time that situation comes up? And what are you looking to do in the future? So you're having them really paint their next steps and you're really just becoming a master question asker. And then you're capping that at 25 minutes or so so that really they walk away with having been part of the architect of their own plan and their own steps that they're going to take going forward. Because it is very, very hard to be the one creating a plan for everyone. And it's, for me, not doable. Some people could probably be really good at it, but I'm not. It's hard.
So for the vision calls, that's just for your level ones, or that was for everybody?
That is just for my level ones. The only people that and I teach them to do it. That's the beauty of it, is I say, you have to do this. And because it's so duplicatable, because here's the problem. If you're doing the coaching thing and if you're doing the mentoring thing, guess what? You have to be somebody who has all those answers. You have to be somebody who's like that, who's like a mini John Maxwell. Like, you've got to have all the answers. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, some people do and some people don't. And it's just not duplicatable. But if you are doing vision calls, that's totally different. It's totally duplicatable. So I'm teaching my level ones to do the same thing. And of course, if you get people who have an inactive between them and you, then they're my level one, of course.
Yes. Okay. So you're saying you do coaching groups, like with a group setting, and then a vision call one-on-one with just your level ones. Mm-hmm. Correct? Okay. All right. Well, your vision calls sound like my coaching calls. Good. It sounds like two different names for the same thing, but yeah, definitely.
You're not giving them all the answers to everything.
Yeah, you want to train up leaders for sure. I love how you said you have to be a mini John Maxwell.
I know. It's like, that's too much. Who can
not everybody can do that. Some people might have inspiration as their gift or their strength, but not everybody does. So that's not really duplicatable. Although you do want to recruit somebody with that strength because it adds to the team. But
sure.
Well, yeah, that was really valuable. Everybody's getting a lot out of that. So thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so the next, I'm going to skip that question because I think I'm going to skip the one about balance because like you said a minute ago, like, people want to know. I think there's other things you have of value that would be more valuable than that question. Okay. So number 4 was, what do you think the key factors to your success were? How did you get to Sapphire?
Okay. What are the key factors? I had a bunch of notes that That one could go on for a while because I think it's so funny. It's hard for me to say, like, what are the key factors? It's so hard. Of course, we're all going to go back to it's mindset and belief. I mean, that is where everything stems from. So without being redundant and telling you things that you already know, I would just say, is this the one? Hold on a second. Hang on one second. I want to make sure that I don't forget something. Obstacles. I promise I'm just going to be a second. I want to make sure that I don't lose track of what I was going to say. Okay. For me, it was beyond mindset and beyond just belief, because those ones have been hammered out so many times and you know why they're important. It is, you've got to make a decision. For me, from day one, it really was a decision for me. It was like, I am doing this. There is no back door. If you haven't really made the decision, if you don't know that you know that you know that you are going to stick with this and keep doing this regardless, then that's the first problem. You have got to make that decision, because when you don't make that decision, the problem is, it's kind of like, I'm just coming up with this on the spot, so it's not going to be the best analogy, but I would say it's kind of like if you were trying to carry, like, water in like a colander with, and you're trying to get to a destination. The problem is, if you haven't truly made the decision within yourself, you're like losing sort of what you need to get to the other side. You're kind of losing because every time that something comes up, you have a back door. You're like, oh, if my family doesn't jump in with me, I'm kind of out. If my sister doesn't buy into it with me, I'm kind of out. If I do this for a few months and I'm not making X amount of dollars, then I'm out. It's like you're always giving yourself a back door, and I never did that. I really looked at, I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know how long it's going to take for me to achieve emerald, whatever. I immediately was going to go diamond. There was never like a what if in my mind. It was, I'm going diamond. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to get there. So that's number one. Number two is authenticity. That's a really big deal to me. Authenticity means that you are not trying to be anybody else. You are not trying to be like, a Jane version of Sonia. Like, you're just Jane. You know what I mean? Because you come into this with your own passion, your own skills, your own strengths, you resonate with people. And the thing is, whenever you're so in your head of like, I'm trying to think of the right words, and I'm trying to say the right things that she says, and I'm trying to come up with the right scripts, and you're up in your head, the thing is, then you're not coming from your core, and you're not being your authentic you. And then guess what? People don't resonate with you. You don't come across to them as a real and genuine and trustworthy person. And so you don't need all the fancy words to do this business. You don't need all the right scripts. I'm not saying it's not good to learn it. I'm not saying it's not good to know your stuff, but that's not what's going to take you to Emerald and beyond. What's going to take you there is that people join you because they believe you and they trust you. That means you're being very authentic with them, that you're being very transparent with them as a leader, as an ambassador to your customers, whatever it is. So I think authenticity is a really big deal. And I think that's been so important to me since day one. And being positive and just having a positive mindset. So if you've got stuff that drags you down and you don't feel positive and negative stuff gets in your head, you've got to fix that. You've got to do whatever work it takes to fix that. Be really positive. Be positive on social media. Be positive in your own life. And work on that. That's important. I would say team culture is really important. So if you want your team to grow, you need your team culture to be good. They need to feel really connected in that team page. They need to feel, that support and that positivity. So that I worked really, really hard on team culture. And then relationships are the biggest thing. Like, you have to always be wanting to serve others. It is not just, that's not just, what is the word, lip service. Like, you have to be, it is about the relationships to get your customers, to get your ambassadors, to get people to trust you. Relationships are super important in this business. And so I think when somebody's not willing to invest in that, that gets tricky. And you have to be willing to always be learning. So those are kind of the things that I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't come into this having done network marketing before. I had a lot to learn, you know? So you have a lot, you got to keep learning.
And you didn't have somebody leading you and holding your head. This is what's so amazing to me is that you learned it all on your own. There was not really a whole lot of guidance. That was something that you just decided you were going to do, and you did it, and nobody had to hold your hand. Nobody. I was just explaining this earlier, how, you know, you're like as a leader, you're like a personal trainer.
Right.
You know, your personal trainer's job is not to make you want it. If you want to get fit, it comes from within, you know. Yeah. Your personal trainer can show you the way to get there if you want it, but they can't make you want it. They can't drag your butt to the gym, you know.
Can we just do a round of applause for that? That was it's so true.
It really is. You cannot force somebody to want it. You just can show them the way to get there. But you can't.
And even if you do manage to inspire people, because I can manage to inspire people in the moment, and like you go to a convention and you're so inspired and you're like, I can do this. The thing is, that's external motivation.
Temporary.
You don't have the internal motivation, that's not going to last.
Exactly. And the people who get fit are the ones who make the sacrifices. They put the work in. They show up. You know, it's the people who grow a business and that are successful, they make the sacrifices. They put the work in. They show up.
Every day.
Yes, exactly. So I love that. And I also love, and I meant to say this earlier when you were talking about how your upline, she didn't know you were watching her, but you had been watching her. She had been posting consistently for 3 or 4 months at that point. Had no idea that her next jewel was about to just out of nowhere just reach out to her. Had no clue.
No, and I asked her one time when I was about Ruby, maybe even more than Ruby, I asked her one time out of the blue, I said, what did it even occur to you that I would want to be involved with Plexus when you first started posting? Because, you know, she came into it from network marketing background. She came into it for the business. She was like, I want this business. I can do this. She was already in network marketing. And so she knew how to do the lists and all that. I didn't know any of that. Like, that was, you know, stuff that I just kind of picked up along the way. But she said no. When I said, would you have reached out to me? She said no. She said because she didn't know I was sick, because nobody knew I was sick, only my closest people, and financially she wouldn't have thought that I would even be interested. Now, let me just tell you something, totally going off the tracks on this, but I always feel like, you know, if something hits me, I should just say it. Do not think for 1 second, my husband was already making over 6 figures a year himself, and I ran a daycare. But I live in the DC area, and that doesn't stretch very far here. But do not think for 1 second that just because somebody makes good money and lives in a beautiful house, which we did, and the kids play travel sports, and we all dress nice, do not think for 1 second that they're sitting pretty and that they're not crying themselves to sleep over stuff, because I was crying myself to sleep over financial stuff. I was trying to figure out how I was going to keep things running. I was at the grocery store, like, stressing because my kids want this, but I can only afford this, and like, travel sports is expensive, and my mortgage was expensive, and my utilities were insane. You guys, today I just clicked onto my daughter's school website and dropped $16,000 to pay her college tuition.
Wow.
Day cash. I could not have done that 3 years ago. I would have not slept at all ever if you told me, you know, 4 years ago that in November of 2016, this is what your tuition bill is going to be for your daughter, I would have been like, I'm just going to jump off the bridge right now. There's no way. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. And anybody can do it. That is what's so amazing. Anybody can do it. And
I didn't even finish college. I went, but I didn't finish.
Hey, I was a teen mom, girl. I was a teen mom. And I mean, I don't know of anything else I could do with no experience, no skills, nothing, to go from making less than $200 a month as a silver ambassador to going to making $8,000 a month as an emerald in 1 year. you know.
You don't have nothing. You have passion,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a desire to help people, and you have the vision to see what's possible. When you see this compensation plan and you know what's possible, you'd be silly to walk away from it. And that's, that doesn't take the college degree. I just, I got a little bit busy raising my kids and I never got to finish, but it doesn't take that to look at that and say, well, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I can do
Yes, I love
mm-hmm.
it. All right. So last question, top tips for anyone feeling stuck.
That one's easy. Okay, if you are feeling stuck, this is the best answer for feeling stuck. I want you to take your current situation, and I want you to sit down and think about your current situation, and I want you to play it forward. And one of two things happens. Either it continues to be as bad as it is going forward, and then other things come up. Your car breaks down, your heating, your furnace goes, you have a $16,000 college bill to pay. Think about that. You're right where you are right now, and you go forward into the future and nothing changes financially for you, and you don't have this kind of a financial freedom building in your life. Or something gets worse, somebody loses a job, something like that happens. Take whatever is happening now and sit down and think about the worst case scenario, and let that just sink in, and realize that is your future if you do not take this seriously and show up every single day and make this happen. Because literally the only way that you can fail at this is by quitting.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's number one. 2, focus really hard on every single person who is counting on you to make this happen. Get yourself out of the way, get your own ego stuff out of the way. See, it's so much easier to say this is someone else's team, because I say these things to my team. They're like, she's talking about me. I know she's talking about me. I can say to everyone else's team, because I'm not talking about you. Think about everybody that's counting on you to make this happen, because really what gets in your way is your own ego and your own fears and all that stuff. And that is not what should be leading your life. It's really who's counting on you to make this happen. And when it's other people depending on you, and for me, it's not just my family that was depending on me. As soon as I had a team, I was like, oh my gosh, I told my team this was possible. I darn well better make it to the top, because I already told them it was possible. And now they've gone all in with me and they believe me. So I'm not going to abandon them.
Yeah.
When it's other people counting on you. And then honestly, the very last part of the if you're stuck is this. You have to recognize that if things aren't moving forward, one of two things is really happening. You're either not leading and inspiring people, so you need to go learn how to be a leader and do that work, or you're not talking to enough people yourself and you're not bringing enough people in, or if you are, you're not really listening and you're not really being authentic with people, so you're just not doing it the right way. So it's really just work harder. That's the answer if you're stuck. Work harder. Work on yourself, work on your attitude, work on your work ethic. That's it. That's the whole answer.
Yes. Love that. Yes. I tell my team all the time, half of this business is IPA and the other half of this business is personal growth.
It is.
You have to have both. Yeah.
And it could be, a bigger portion of it for some people. The personal growth could be a bigger portion of it for some people. And if that's the case, do it, because you're never, ever going to get paid better for anything else.
Mm-hmm.
This translates across your whole entire life. So it's really worth it.
Yes, it does. Definitely. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Angela, I am so, so eternally grateful that you took an hour to come share your wisdom with us.
So much fun.
And to take an hour of your time, but I certainly appreciate it, and I'm sure this whole entire team does too. Thank you so much.
It was so nice talking to you guys, and I saw all your comments popping up and everything, and I read them as fast as I could, but thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I hope to see you all at the next convention, leaders retreat, and come up and meet me. Come up and say hi.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Angela. I'm sure
you're welcome.
Get some messages thanking you, but we appreciate you. All right, good night, everybody.